All right, so it's Saturday morning, December 14th, and another week of progress here. I got the left wing finished. It's looking pretty good. The left one goes together much easier than the right one, just because you've got practice. Something I noticed as I was running to the end of the parts of the wing kit are these two metal reinforcement strips. There was 4 of them, so I knew that there was 2 for each wing, and they actually go to reinforce the countersunk holes at the end of the main spar along here on the inside underneath the countersunk holes of the main spar and on the bottom. They're not mentioned anywhere in the instruction manual. So I actually assembled the right wing without them, and it wasn't until I noticed that I had some extra parts left over that I need to look into it. And you can scan the barcodes on the Sling Build app, and it'll show you where they are in the manuals. And of course, scan it, and they're not in the manuals anywhere, just like I thought. And so, luckily, I've got a question into the factory on how important they are. Of course, I'm hoping that it's okay to not have them, but I know that they're going to say to drill out the rivets and put them in, so I'm already ready for that. Luckily, I didn't rivet the last rib in, so I'll just pull that out, drill out the rivets along each side, and install them. So luckily, because I didn't put the wingtip or the last rib on, it's going to be not too big of a deal if I do in fact have to do it. So something pretty exciting is I drove up on Wednesday and picked up the engine. So here's a Rotax 915. The lid is off, but I haven't really messed with it at all. Other than that, I don't want to rip it out of the package or anything. I did rip it open so you can kind of see, but everything's packaged up nice and neat with all the components, the fuel pumps and things are in boxes. And I got the firewall forward kit here, and it's ready to go and ready to be installed on the plane, which is pretty exciting because I think it's about time to do that. Another thing that I noticed along the way of building the wing, and I think it's kind of consistent with the whole build, is it matters what order you put the clecos to make sure everything fits up really nice and smooth. So what I do is, at first, I put very few clecos, just enough to barely hold it into place, and choose a critical component to kind of build everything off of, right? So if you were to start by clecoing all the ribs and the little stringers along the top, the clecos will go in nice and easy, but you could have it completely, twisted. So it's probably common sense, but I figured it was worth mentioning that I start with the main spar along here and kind of work my way back. So then the next thing I would cleco are the rear spar along here, because those are 2 kind of critical components, and those really determine the actual shape of the wing. And so then after you've done all these, then you can kind of come in and slowly add clecos along. And these stringers are basically nothing. So you pretty much put one at the end and one at the end, and then come back and put a couple through later, just to hold those in place. And then the ribs have little gaps where the stringers go, like a little cutout to let it go through. And so what I do is I cleco each end of the rib first, and then one in the middle. And that way you're holding everything nice and straight and in place, and everything goes together nice and easy when you do it that way. Another thing that I noticed along the way of the wing is these countersinks along the main spar, and there's a ton of them, and it's probably one of the less fun parts of the build to go through and countersink all these little holes. But what you could be tempted to do is countersink it and measure it by dropping a rivet in. But I don't think that that's quite the right way to do it. I think you're better off finding a scrap piece of aluminum and dimpling a correct size hole, because there's a thickness to the aluminum. So if you think about it, if you have this countersunk perfectly for a rivet, and then you go to put a piece of an aluminum with, you know, a thickness to it, it's actually going to sit slightly above the surface of the spar. Because of the thickness to the aluminum, this hole needs to be just slightly deeper. So I ended up taking a scrap piece of aluminum, drilling a hole, dimpling that hole to find the exact depth. And once you have your countersink tool set, you can pretty much go through and drill them all out, or countersink them all out, and just check every couple. You don't have to check every single one once you have your tool set. So that's a little tidbit there that I used, and I thought it was important. Definitely these strips not being in the instructions. If you're building your wing kit out there, it goes at the far, starting at the last hole on the main spar on the underneath of it. So it's like because when you countersink, the material there is a little bit thinner. So when you countersink, you can slightly enlarge the hole. So these basically just provide a locking surface for that rivet to line up in. So when I was up at the factory, I kind of went over kind of what's the next steps for me here. But I'll start from a little bit earlier in the build, what I would suggest for the build order overall, after having done this a little bit out of order, in my opinion, just because of what kits were available when. I would do the empennage first, of course, just like they say, followed by the wing next, because they're really similar processes, and it kind of gets you familiar with the way the build works, and all the tools and everything, and they're easy. They're big, but they're easy. And then you'd move on to the fuselage. And so you'd pretty much, I think that what I've done here with the fuselage is about right to get started, and it allows you to get in there still with no problems, and run all your wires and run all your control rods and everything really easily. And then the next steps for me now, well, I still have to build the flap and the aileron for this wing and the gas tank, but that'll go quick next week. The flap and the aileron both combined will probably only take me 3 or 4 hours. And then the tank and this wing will be done. Of course, I'll pressure test the tank, but I think that the gas tanks are actually a pretty easy process. I would play with the Pro Seal a little bit with some scrap stuff, even though a tube of Pro Seal is 20 bucks. It's probably well worth wasting that 20 bucks just to play with it and get a feel for it. I didn't do that, and so it kind of caused me to be a little uncertain with the material I was working with when I was working up this tank. And the very first thing I riveted, or the very first thing I applied Pro Seal to, was the gas cap here. And I was a little bit nervous, maybe a little bit rushed compared to how you should go about it. And I think I applied slightly too little Pro Seal, because I didn't know how much squeeze out or ooze it was going to provide, and it provides almost none. So you can actually apply it fairly liberally and then go back through and wipe off the ooze out. But I do think you want a little bit of ooze out to know that you made a solid contact surface, because when I leak tested this tank, I forgot to mention it in last week's video, there was a very slight leak right here at the edge. So luckily I'll be able to pop the cap off and get in there with my finger and apply more Pro Seal. And everything else I'm fairly confident is leak proof. I don't really have any concerns about that. But yeah, I would recommend playing with the Pro Seal, or kind of squeezing it between 2 pieces of aluminum. Just getting a feel for the material before you use it, because it is a little bit unlike other materials that I've worked with. But back to the order of the build. So I think that the next couple steps here are to button up the canopy here. The rear skins, I've just been leaving them off, like I said before, just for access into there, but it's about time to get it going. So I spoke with them up at the airplane factory in Torrance, and they said to wait on the avionics until after you've painted and done everything else, just because then there's less chance for overspray on all the wires and things. And that makes sense. Any excuse to put off the avionics, I'm satisfied with. So next step here for me is going to be either, and I don't think it makes a difference which one I do first, but it's going to be either doing the firewall forward and putting the engine on, which I'm leaning towards because I am really excited for that step, and putting the rear skins and the canopy on, the inside skins first, of course, and basically just kind of buttoning up the inside here. The one reason that I haven't yet put the canopy and the rear skins specifically on yet is because the magnetometer goes down here, and that's part of the actual avionics. And so I'm gonna have to just figure out exactly what to do with that. I'm guessing I just run the one wire back there and then up to the front, and then that'll be good enough for now. And then I can button it up. That probably is no problem at all. But the issue with that is that I think that the CAN bus that goes to the magnetometer back there also goes to the autopilot servo and all of this. But like I said, I can run the wire from there up to here and then deal with all the other connections later on after paint. And so, yeah, that's pretty much, I think, the overall build order. I like that it's on its wheels already. It just makes it easier for me to work on. I guess you don't technically have to put it on its wheels before you put the canopy, but it starts to get heavier and heavier the more parts you get on it. So that's the order I've chosen. So yeah, buttoning up the canopy here and putting the firewall forward in the engine. That'll be coming as soon as I finish those wings next week. So I'm excited for this. It's gonna start to look like an airplane here. So that's it for this week. I'll probably post a second video here shortly because I wanted to talk about priming versus not priming, as well as the deburring issues. And I see a lot of people talking about that. So I wanted to put in my 2 cents, and I'll have to upload a second video because for some reason I can only upload videos that are 15 minutes long to YouTube through my phone. And I'm not gonna get so fancy with these videos to figure out how to do it longer. I don't really care, I'll just put a second one. So that's it for now, and have a good week.